You're tuned to The Drive on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. Steelers Nation Radio.
Good afternoon, Steelers Nation. It's The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. Wes Uhler and Matt Williamson with you here on a jam-packed Thursday, where we've got more interview news, Matt.
Yeah.
We've got, I think, one of the first big head coaching dominoes to fall, as we've got reports about John Harbaugh's future. We have got to get into more on the Steelers head coaching opening, the pros and the cons of that from an outsider perspective. We're going to talk a little mock draft news in the second hour today. We're also going to catch up with our buddy Arthur Moats.
That's awesome, yeah.
A former host here on this network who spent, of course, 4 years playing for Mike Tomlin, just to get his thoughts on the end of the Mike Tomlin era and what was it like to, have that guy as your head coach for 4 years. I'm sure he'll we'll get it right.
I bet you're psyched to talk to Moatsy again.
We'll get it right from the source. And yeah, he's always fun to talk to, always brings the energy. So we have got a jam-packed show for you today. But we start, Matt, with kind of the news of the day. I do want to get into John Harbaugh and his future momentarily. But first, since we were last on air yesterday, you can add 2 more names to Steelers head coaching candidates that the team has reached out to and requested interviews with. Jeff Hafley, Packers defensive coordinator, being one of them. The other, and I'm going to do my best to pronounce his name right.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
I went on the Carolina Panthers website and actually looked at their media guide, the pronunciation guide, so I think I got it right. It's Ejiro Evero, which is a pretty cool name. Ejiro
It is kind of
Evero.
cool. I always like names that rhyme.
This
is great.
It's pretty cool. It's one that the Yinzers would totally mess up all the time, and it's one that I'm sure Rob King would have to practice a million times. But you can add the Packers defensive
I've always
coordinator.
heard it pronounced Evero.
Okay.
I've avoided the first name like it's my job, but I've always heard it pronounced Evero. But I would trust the Panthers website over me.
Evero is kind of how they have it laid out on their pronunciation guide.
Okay.
Regardless,
Either way,
the Panthers defensive coordinator, the Packers defensive coordinator, that's now 7 names that we know, Matt. 6 of them being defensive coordinators.
Defensive?
Yes.
Okay.
Nathan Shellhaas, who would be a great
That's
Yinzer head coach, too.
Yeah. There's an extra A in there to make it a Haas.
A Haas is the only one on the offensive side of the football that we know of so far.
Now, Shellhouse could possibly come with Shula.
That might start to become my dream scenario.
Me too, because then you get 2 of
and they speak the same language, and they come from the same tree.
And the right team they're coming from, and the McVay world. That's kind of exciting to me.
They're 39 and 42 years old.
Right. So that's enticing. I'm a little concerned because I know that there are way more good defensive candidates than offensive this year. I mean,
agreed.
Just across the league, all the people interviewing. It's not like this is a Steelers
it's not Liam
only thing.
Cohen and Ben Johnson.
Yeah. So those guys kind of got plucked a year ago. Maybe it's next year will be more offensive. Who knows? But it does worry me a little because I think a better approach in today's NFL is to have an offensive guy. But the best approach is just to get the best coach.
Exactly. Right.
You know what I mean?
And as we laid out yesterday, 8 teams left.
Yeah.
4 have offensive-minded head coaches. 4 have defensive-minded head coaches.
Exactly. For people who don't quite say what the heck's the difference, offensive play callers are more important and harder to find than defensive play callers. And I think they make more of a difference on game day and prep week and quarterback development and all that stuff, too.
I think they can affect more schematically.
Yes. So you get in the dilemma of where, like, the Bucs are at right now, where Todd Bowles and company hired a phenomenal offensive coordinator. Then Carolina steals him and he becomes your head coach. Okay, then they go back to the well, nail another one. Nice job. 2 in a row. You got great offensive coordinators. Jacksonville steals your guy, and he might win coach of the year. So you go back to the well, and you miss. It's basically what they did. And that's the way you have to live, because if you hit, you get 2 years out of these young offensive minds, and they will inevitably be stolen for sure. And then you're not going to hit 3 in a row. You'll be lucky to 2 in a row. You'll be lucky to 2 out of 3, That doesn't mean the next guy stinks, but
you've almost have to pick your poison in this way, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas you can't, not everybody, but there's a lot of the same people that on one hand are screaming and yelling about where was Mike Tomlin's coaching tree? How come you were never getting offensive coordinators that were getting plucked for head coaching jobs, you know?
And that's valid.
But then on the other hand, they'll tell you that they don't want to hire someone who's going to be gone as a head coach. And well, if we hire this guy, he's going to be gone in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So which is it? Which do you want? Because those things can be exclusive.
They can be, yeah.
And
they can both be true, yeah.
I am always going to lean on the side of it's like I've told you, it's when you're a football program or a basketball program like Pitt or WVU, and you hire Jeff Capel. Oh, what if he leaves in 4 or 5 years and goes to replace Mike Krzyzewski at Duke?
Well, then you realize
how good? You realize how good he had to
right.
be to replace Mike Krzyzewski at Duke if that ended up happening? Like
that's what I was saying. These
that
are
means
good
you were
problems
going
to
to Final Fours and contending for national championships for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
like,
that's. I mean, that Bucks example. They won a lot of games. And they won the division, and they went to the playoffs and made noise. Times were good.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. And if Nathan Shieldhouse is here for 2 or 3 years and then becomes an offensive or a head coach somewhere else, that means you probably went to at least an AFC championship game.
It's a successful mission.
I mean,
and your quarterback's doing something right.
Exactly.
You know, right. Yeah. Again, those are good problems to have. It's
I think
just hard to hit over and over.
Champagne problems, as I think you've labeled them before.
Yep. But like the Eagles are in that dilemma right now too. You know, like Kellen Moore leaves, becomes the head coach of the Saints, getting a ton out of Shuck, and then the offense is a disaster this year. You know, and you know, but they also won the Super Bowl last year. By the way, they have a ring.
3 Super Bowls in the last 7 or 8 years.
Right. So do they regret hiring Kellen Moore and winning the Super Bowl?
No.
No, right. Exactly.
Not one bit.
So now they're struggling to find the next one. So be it. So again, I would love to have Shanahan or McVay as your coach, and you never have to deal with those things, and it's easier to find defensive guys. But I would also rather have the better leader of men, smarter guy, better on game day, better communicator, better coach, you know?
1,000%.
As for Evero or whatever, Young, he's in his second year with one of the least talented defenses in the league. I mean, like, if you look at the Panthers' defensive ranks last year, they're like 30th, 31st. They had nothing. They added some stuff, and it got better. His resume won't blow you away, but people have talked about him as a future head coach now for like 3 or 4 years. Like, this dude's super bright, blows you away in the room. Halfley, I don't know as much about, but he was a head coach at BC 2 years ago.
Okay.
Became the head coach or became the defense coordinator at Green Bay.
Yes.
Actually took a pay cut to do it. Well regarded, but that one worries me a little because he doesn't have a ton of NFL experience. He had NFL experience before he went to BC. I forget exactly his timeline. I think he GA'd at Ohio State when I was a GA at Pitt because I remember meeting him at one of our passing camps. Anyway.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was a million years ago. But I will say
he was a defensive assistant coach at Pitt 2006 and 2007.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I knew that too. But was he a GA at Ohio State like 2001?
I don't see that.
Okay,
no.
then okay. I must have met him somehow through
Looks
Pitt.
like he was at Albany before
Gotcha,
Pitt.
Gotcha. Yeah. But what worries me is Packers' defense fell apart when Parsons got hurt. You know, I mean, is that all him? Is that – I don't know that he's considered a super schemer, but he is considered a really bright, up-and-coming type coach.
Certainly one that we need to keep an eye on. Yeah, He was the head coach of Boston College for 4 years.
I think he did pretty well.
And for theirs, I mean, 6-5, 6-6, 7-6 for Boston College. That's
not bad.
That's not bad. That's a really tough job.
It is.
And then
it's a tough place to recruit to.
Absolutely is. And then from there, went and has been the Packers defensive coordinator the last 2 seasons. He was at Ohio State. 2019 as defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach. Spent some time with the Niners, the Browns, the Bucks, Rutgers, Pitt. So he does have a vast wealth of experience at kind of different.
A lot of college, though.
A lot of college, but has been, with a couple NFL franchises too. So again, though, all these guys right in that same kind of age pocket of mid-30s to mid-40s, right in that range.
I joked heavily yesterday. I'm like, how do we know the Steelers have a type? Well, it looks like they have a type. I mean, young defensive-minded guys or young up-and-coming potential 2-decade, keepers. But I did find it funny. I'm like, just because in 1960 whatever they hired Knoll and, Cowher and Tomlin, I mean, these were not recent hires. They may not have a type.
It was a good, fair question by Mike Pursuta.
Yeah.
But it also was kind of funny when Adamski was like, I mean, that was 19 years ago, you know?
It's one hire.
It's not like they're going out on the dance floor every weekend looking for a new date. You know, it's been a long time since they've stepped out on the dance floor and been looking for a new partner to cut the rug with.
But it does seem unlikely, at least today, Thursday, that it would be a Stefanski or a McCarthy or somebody like that that's had success as a...
Funny you said that. I put this down in my notes, and it was one of those things that I was like, maybe we'll get to this.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't, no big deal. DraftKings Sportsbook, okay? It's,
yeah.
You know, FanDuel, one of these, one of these big sports books. They have odds, they all do, on the next Pittsburgh Steelers head coach. I mean, you know that you can bet on anything. You can
same with the Titans and Dolphins and et cetera.
Bet on anything nowadays. Updated odds to be the next Pittsburgh Steelers head coach via DraftKings Sportsbook. Again, this isn't the gospel, but it's about as educated of a guess as you can have.
Yeah.
Chris Shula, number 1.
That's what I heard. That's the only part I knew, yeah.
Brian Flores, number 2.
Okay.
And then there's a pretty significant drop-off.
Really?
But Robert Saleh, number 3.
He has not been interviewed yet.
He has not been interviewed yet, but he's still number 3 on this list. Jesse Minter, who we know they would like to interview, number 4. Vance Joseph, 5.
He's not been contacted
contacted either. And
now,
then,
both those guys are still playing, but right.
So those are the top 5, and then you've got a bunch of guys kind of tied for 6th, if you will. Nathan Scheelhaas.
Seems a little early for him.
Mike McDaniel, Kevin Stefanski, Clint Kubiak, Marcus Freeman, the Notre Dame head coach.
Okay.
And then after that, there's a bunch of long shots. Kurt Signetti, Mike LaFleur, John Gruden, Cliff Kingsbury, Matt Nagy, Joe Brady, Brian Dable, Bill Belichick, a bunch of the long shots.
A lot of those are similar.
John Gruden should be 2,000 to 1, not 20 to 1.
Belichick is funny. He's got.
Can I just listen? There was somebody who, I don't know if they tweeted us or if it was in the YouTube comments, and they're like, "Man, Wes has been really hard on fans the last couple weeks." Like,
really?
So I'm not trying to be rude when I say this, okay? Because I'm a dingus too, all right? I don't know much more than the average person. But what I do know is if you are seriously floating John Gruden as the Steelers' next head coach, I think you need to give your head a shake and go for a walk and touch some grass. I mean, like, you think it's been a long time since Mike Tomlin won a playoff game. When was the last time John Gruden won a playoff game?
Got himself a little bit of trouble in between.
He hasn't been an NFL coach in 5 or 6 years. He hasn't been a successful one since long before that.
Yeah.
Just stop.
I just can't see that at all.
I think I would list 100 names that I would want before John Gruden. He's a Barstool podcaster now who hasn't coached in a full presidential cycle or longer. Like, I'm good. I'm good on that.
I'm good on that too. This is really getting ahead of ourselves, and I'm not including Gruden in this pile. But if you were to say Shula, defensive-minded guy, or not necessarily Flores, but a young Evero, somebody like that, I would love to see them hire a Stefanski or a McDaniel as the offensive coordinator.
1,000%.
I mean, to me, that would be great because there's only 8 spots left. Everyone's interviewing the same people. There's going to be some good offensive minds that are shut out.
So I said
that aren't currently coordinators. You can't steal a coordinator and make him a coordinator.
Correct.
Right.
For what would be a lateral. A lateral. That's the word I'm looking for.
That's what's interesting about Steelhouse.
Yes.
Because he's
a pass game coordinator,
which is not the same.
So I still think that might be my dream scenario as you bring those two in together, but I don't know. Be nice. Maybe it's you hire a Chris Shula and you get a Stefanski or a McDaniel as your
somebody
OC.
That's been a head coach I can look up to.
That might be the real
a nice move,
dream scenario.
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot.
Very interesting. Well, Matt, in this entire equation, in terms of available head coaches and available jobs, you can now scratch one off the list on both sides of those. Mm-hmm. As John Harbaugh reportedly will be the next head coach of the New York Football Giants.
I think this is absolutely perfect.
It makes a ton of sense for both sides.
It really, really does. And I've been asked, and I don't think the answer is yes, but people are like, oh, this is Vrabel going to the Patriots. Exact same thing. I'm like, well, there's some similarities. A once proud franchise takes over a second-year first-round quarterback, and maybe most importantly brings Monken / McDaniel, a big-time offensive coordinator that's been around the block, that's never going to be a head coach. So I see the similarities, but two things. First, I would take Drake May, a year ago Drake May, not knowing he was going to be an MVP, 1,000 out of 1,000 times over Dart. And I understand Dart. People like Dart. I don't as much as others, but I'm at least I'm not blind to the fact that he could be the answer. I mean, so I see the appeal for Harbaugh and et cetera, but I'm taking May all day long. That's not even close to me. And I hate to say this, Giants fans, but you guys play the NFC West and the AFC West this upcoming year. The Patriots had the easiest schedule in the league.
They had a very easy schedule,
and they took full advantage of it. But I don't know that I'm expecting the Giants to be still active 365 days from now in the playoffs.
Agreed.
But I do love the marriage. I mean, I think it's exactly what the Giants need, and some of this is a reflection of the Steelers too. But I think some of these teams, ownership groups that are family oriented, it's the family business, it's generational, have a better feel for the Harbaughs and Vrabels. Like the guys that have done it, they're lifers. They're like, look at my resume. The last 20 years, I was a pretty darn good coach.
Yes.
Tomlin, et cetera. That I think those guys are more open to jumping in and attacking those type of coaches. I know he's a good coach. I know Tomlin's a good coach. I know, Vrabel's a good coach. Where Tennessee's like, he's kind of wearing thin. Like,
right.
It's not the best move ever.
No.
But I think it's good for him. They got a lot of pieces. They have some pieces at least.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's truth to this, and I'm not spreading rumors, but a couple people I kind of trust floated this out there that if the Giants didn't get Harbaugh, they might contact Tomlin. Which would how could you not? I mean,
for both of those, for that organization that has been so barren for a long time.
Yeah.
And
get me back to 8-9 wins and make me relevant
again. And is a historic, cornerstone NFL franchise.
Yep.
I think to have a coach like that kind of stand up in front of the fan base, and
I think it's perfect for those guys.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
It makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I think it's a good hire for the Giants. I think it's a good landing spot for Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the teams and one of the head coaches now off the books.
And you mentioned it right when you started the show. He's definitely the biggest domino. Like, I'm sure,
so.
Like Miami might have been like, I really like this guy, but I'm still holding out for Harbaugh,
Especially if Mike Tomlin and his agent are being clear with all these teams that he's taken at least a year off. Like, he's not coaching in
Tomlin
2026.
Aside, the other guy, the guys that don't cost you anything.
And that also could just be like, I'm sure there's been some teams, some GMs that have reached out to Tomlin's agent, his camp, however you want, and said, hey, what would it take to, and they're like, he's not coaching in 2026. Mm-hmm. That's just it. There's as he said when he was asked a few years ago about would you ever go to some place like USC or something like that, there's not a booster with a big enough check. Like, there's not an owner with a big enough check. He's not coaching in 2026.
That's a possibility. Right?
Certainly.
Maybe he just wants to take a year off.
Certainly. But
I guarantee people have reached out.
100%.
Of course.
100%.
Right.
And so with that kind of thought to be in all likelihood, I think Harbaugh was absolutely the biggest domino that fell. And we'll have kind of more conversation about now who are the, what are the ranking the head coaching jobs that are still available.
Yeah, that's
in fact,
cool.
Let's do this. If it's all right with you, you want to spend the rest of the hour, these next two segments, let's have that conversation.
Yep.
Kind of where the Steelers rank in that discussion. And then we can piggyback off of that and talk about if you were a neutral up-and-coming coordinator and interviewing for the Steelers job, what would you look at as the pros of being the Steelers' next head coach?
Okay.
What would you look at as the cons? Because there's obviously both.
I haven't interviewed for many jobs in my life, but I've pretty much gotten them all, like the Pitt.
Look at this guy. Wow. Humble brag.
I got hired by the Browns. I got hired by Pitt. They're like the only two I think I've ever interviewed for. Actually, I guess I shouldn't bring this up. Well, I should. I interviewed twice to be the Steelers' scouting intern. And I didn't come in first either time.
Okay.
So I actually know
pre-Browns, post-Browns?
Pre. It was when I was GA next door.
Gotcha.
With Kevin.
Gotcha.
Right. Actually, Andy Weidel was leaving the job, and I was trying to replace Andy Weidel at that point. He was an up-and-coming new guy. Right.
Worked out pretty well for Andy Weidel.
Worked out pretty well
for you. I mean, you get to host radio with that Wes Uhler guy. I mean, what else would you rather want?
But anyway, where I was going with this is I don't know how – I'm not a great interviewer or interviewee, but the one thing that was always taught to me is when you're being interviewed for a job, interview them. Ask them, like, why do I want you as opposed to the other way around? And that's a way to look at, like, these jobs in terms of, okay, Mr. Rooney – I am the best. You go in there with the confidence, I am the best guy for the job. But why should I pick you over the Titans? Or you know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah,
and it's funny you say that. My sister's about to graduate college here in a few months, and she actually did just get offered and accepted a job upon graduation. But I was kind of having that back over the summer when she was getting ready, like I'm heading into my senior year.
Don't be cocky in
but you should go in.
Jag.
I don't care if you're interviewing for your first job at Target.
Exactly.
Or
right.
Giant Eagle.
Yeah.
You should go in and at least have, I want to ask these 2 or 3 questions because it just.
I told my daughter
smart.
this. She's a server at a local restaurant. I'm like, go in there and kind of interview them.
Ask what does my average workday look like?
Yeah.
What do holidays look like? What type of development do you have here that I could potentially climb up a ladder? Like those are all the questions I told my sister to ask. Like, if I start with your company here when I'm 22 years old, what does 5 years look like for me? Where can you help me get to? All these different things.
Why are you better than the other options?
Exactly.
Right.
What's the work-life balance look like? All those things. 100%. So let's get into that. Other jobs that are still available, where the Steelers kind of rank in that pecking order, and then what are the pros of taking the Steelers head coaching job? What are some of the cons and some of the concerns? Let's do those conversations as we roll along here for the rest of the first hour. We'll talk to Arthur Moats in hour number 2. We'll talk some NFL draft in hour number 2. A jam-packed Thursday here, just getting started on the drive on Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network. Nine teams entered, 8 remain in terms of head coaching vacancies for this offseason. You can scratch the Giants off the list. You can scratch Harbaugh off the list of candidates. And then there were 8. Ranking those 8 teams, Matt. Okay.
Yeah.
As you can imagine,
maybe we should just pull the Steelers out of it and talk about them separately, or we can put them right in there.
All I was going to do was if you look now, and I'm sure this surprises nobody, but if you go to NFL.com, ESPN, CBS, wherever, you'll find the article power ranking the open NFL jobs, and all of them have either the Ravens or the Steelers 1 and 2.
Yes.
And that makes a ton of sense. The argument for Baltimore is organizational stability, and you get Lamar Jackson, who's still 29 years old. For the Steelers, it's organizational stability, iconic franchise, family ownership, still a lot of talent on that roster. And then
they're a first-place team. They're the only team that won their division.
Exactly right. Exactly right. But would you, if we do take the Steelers out of the equation, would concur Baltimore is number 1?
Yeah, give me a second here, because I used to have a list, and I know it basically, but I had like 5 things in order. If I were a head coach, what would I look from the open team?
Love it.
And basically, pretty close to it, and could tweak it, but it's been a couple years since I've had this conversation. Number 1 is ownership / stability, all those type of things. The stuff that's never going away. Like the Jets would be like last. You know what I mean? Like winning history. Browns
way
terrible,
down the
terrible,
list.
terrible.
Bengals
right.
way down the list.
Way down the list. But ownership I can trust, and winning tradition and environment I'm walking into.
They're going to give me everything I need to win.
Yes. And that doesn't even necessarily have to be the highest paid guy, but I mean, salary and stuff isn't even on my list, but that does matter, and people don't think about this. Like, it's not number 2 on my list, but like the Packers don't pay their assistant coaches very well. I know this because Halfley took a pay cut to go from BC to become the DC for them.
Is that part of their non-ownership model?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what specifically their reasoning is behind it, but it makes it harder to build your staff too. Like, I'm going to take the Cowboy job that has an extra
where
0
Jerry
on the end
Jones
of it.
will tell me pay him whatever you want.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyways, my parameters would go something like this. It'd be like ownership / stability, organization, history. Stuff that's hard to like put your finger on. Number 2 is quarterback.
I think you and I are in lockstep on that.
No doubt. Either who's the guy I'm inheriting now, or the Raiders, that's Mendoza. He's not there yet.
Or the Titans, I got Cam Ward heading into his sophomore year.
Exactly. Next then would be my ability to get better. Draft picks and salary cap. Or who are the contracts that are just dead weights here that
like
I got to
the
work
Tua
around.
situation in Miami.
That's awful, right? Or like Peyton goes to Denver and was stuck with Russell Wilson contract. I mean, or Deshaun Watson. But where am I picking in the draft? What kind of draft capital do I have overall? What's my salary cap look like? So my ability, my resources to go get my guys. And then after that, I started looking at things like division, You know, like, do I really want to play against Mahomes and Herbert every year? Or, you know, like May and Allen all of a sudden look pretty. They're not going away anytime soon.
That's a tough one for Miami.
But there's not many good landing spots for that either. It's not like,
because
this is easy.
Most of the best landing spots are not moving on from their head coach.
The Bills job isn't open.
Those things kind of work in tandem.
Yeah. But those are like my big bullet points.
There's a reason why the Ravens job wasn't open for 18 years. There's a reason why the Steelers job wasn't open for 19 years.
Yeah.
There's a reason why the Packers job is not open very often, and you know some of these places. Yeah.
And I got asked today on my different podcast about, well, boy, why do so many head coaches fail? I'm like, well, a lot of them are getting hired by the worst teams in the league, for one thing. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. The other thing is, if you win 4 out of 10 games, people think that's failing too. You know, I mean, the bar is really high, but usually you're going to the worst organizations in the league with the worst ownership and the worst quarterback situation. That's why you got fired. And even if they hire Belichick or Lombardi, you might get fired in 2 years anyway, you know, like, because you're in a bad situation. I would put the Ravens 1 because of the quarterback. I mean, we could fight about, if we're as impartial as could be, which organization is better.
Sure.
I know on the field they've looked similar, but from what I understand, I'm way closer to this organization. They aren't as similar as you think inside the walls. I mean, like, Baltimore did something unusual a couple years ago and pulled 2 or 3 of these Twitter analytic nerds off and contacted them off Twitter and said, we want to hire you. Like, I can't imagine the Steelers would ever do that. You know what I mean?
They did take this Matt Williamson guy, though, and let him write a stats packet for the Steelers.com every week. I mean, geez Louise.
But I do think they do view things differently. You know, like, over these last 20 years, no one's been better in the league at getting comp picks, which is kind of an analytical way of looking at things, too. Everyone thinks about the Ravens and Steelers are tough and they fight on the field. They do, but they don't always view things exactly the same. So, but that being said, I think both organizations are definitely, if we grabbed Green Bay or all the GMs and head coaches in the world and say tier all the organizations for that
tier
top
1,
bullet
tier
point.
2, tier 3, tier 4.
I think they're both in tier 1.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? So
Agreed.
That's a tie at worst in terms of history, stability, ownership, all those things. But one team has a quarterback and the other one doesn't have a real clear path to the other one. You know, to their next quarterback. To me, that makes the Ravens the most attractive job available.
I think that's
fair. Rare one.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Those
often,
ones don't open.
How
very
often
much.
has there been an opening job where you can have a 29-year-old 2-time MVP quarterback?
Exactly. That in itself, even if he was on the Cardinals or the Jets or, you know, whatever, that in itself makes it pretty attractive.
I mean, it would be like,
usually
it'd be like if Buffalo was trying to replace McDermott at some point, if Andy Reid retires here in the next year or two, but it's very
since he would open.
Most of the time I feel like when it's just older coaches retiring is the case when you get a quarterback still.
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin when he replaced Bill Cowher.
Bill Walsh
thing.
said I had enough and he gives it to Seifert. You know,
yes.
Okay, you can have Montana and great, thanks. Yeah, that worked out well.
Thank you. 100%.
So I think those two stand alone though as most attractive jobs. But if you're being impartial and you take the Steelers job, you got to be like, well, what's your guys' thoughts on a new quarterback? Here's my thoughts on a new quarterback. You know, I realize hopefully I'm here long enough that Cam and TJ aren't still around because they're not going to. I'm hoping to outlast them. You know, what do we think of this next generation of the roster? That would worry me from a Ravens perspective. Is like, I don't see as many Frazier's and Faltanus and Porters. You know, outside of the quarter, they haven't drafted as well as people think.
No,
lately.
they have not.
I mean, so their young core isn't as great as people think either. That would definitely be a bullet point for mine too. Is quarterback and young core. You know, like do I have Penei Sewell? Nice. You know, you don't have to worry about tackle for a long time. You know,
it makes a lot of sense.
So the other ones,
NFL.com has the Browns ranked as 3rd.
They're last for me.
That's crazy to me. And their reasoning is they had a really good rookie class. They have a ton of draft capital.
That's the only good thing.
And you're almost at the end of the Watson contract.
Well,
but you are you're still in quarterback purgatory.
Still in purgatory. And yes, they had a really good rookie class. And one of these days we're going to go over the rookie ranks that ESPN has put out. Yeah. Aaron Schatz put it out, and it's very good. And the Browns are not shockingly at the top of the league for best rookie class.
And they played a ton of minutes.
And they also played the most snaps knowing that they stink. You know, they're not trying to win right now.
Let's evaluate.
But the problem is their rookies are running backs and linebackers and tight. They're not tackles and quarterbacks and edge rushers.
It's like
they're the easy positions to find.
I remember like a week or two ago, this was off air. You and I were talking about some of the jobs that were open, and I was like, Raiders' job might not be that bad for me. Like, you've got cap space. You're in a market where they're not going to hold your feet to the fire to win right away.
That stuff should be important too, right?
And I was like, and you got Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty, and you're going to get Fernando Mendoza, and you were like, yeah, but like Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty, they're great, but it's a tight end and a running back.
That's the thing. I wish they were both offensive tackles.
It's not a left tackle and a 26-year-old Max Crosby.
Right. I mean, this dynamic edge rusher phenom.
Yes.
It's not Will Anderson.
Yes. No, you're right. Like, as much as it would be nice, hey, I got third-year Brock Bowers and second-year Ashton Genty, but you've got no offensive line. And
I can find a tight end in the third round that's not Bowers, but I can live with.
Right.
Right.
I mean, like you said, I'd rather have Penei Sewell than Brock Bowers because of the position. And Yeah.
The Browns are last.
I think the Browns might be last on mine. They have Falcons 4, Dolphins 5, Cardinals 6, Titans 7, Raiders last.
I see why the Raiders are last. Just because they have so much work to do.
They do. And they're not none of these organizations, obviously, other than the Steelers and the Ravens, are the picture of stability.
No.
That's why they're in these conversations every few years. But if
those ones you listed, how many will still have this new head coach 3 years from now?
Half.
At most.
At most.
At most.
It's hard for me to say the Titans and the Raiders are the last two just because the quarterback situations are much better than anywhere else.
See, that's where I was going to go the next.
Unless you hate Cam Ward or hate Fernando Mendoza, you at least have your quarterback, and that's half the battle.
When there was 9 openings, the other 7, Steelers and Ravens, I went Titans, then Giants.
I can see
because I love Ward.
Yeah, I love Cam Ward.
I like Ward way more than Dart.
Even though neither of us are in love with Dart,
but I'm at least intrigued.
I'm intrigued. Right. It's a much more stable organization, and they've got some pieces in the trenches.
See, the nice thing about the Giants, they have a left tackle, they have a number 1 receiver, they have Dexter, they have a D line.
They have a legit D line.
Where the Titans need more stuff. But if I get to work with
the
Ward,
Titans have a great defensive lineman.
Yeah, right.
And a really good left
guard.
Their
O-line's now
really good
okay.
left guard, but that might be about it. Yeah, that's because I think, to get back to where we started, I think your points of organizational stability is number 1. Ownership, stability.
And that worries me with the Titans.
Yes. Well, that worries me with a lot.
Almost all these teams. And it will next year with the openings and the year after because they're the worst teams in the league.
And number 2 being quarterback. If I'm looking at all of these situations, kind of taking Steelers and Ravens out of it. If I'm looking at all these other situations.
Because the Steelers are not one of the best quarterback situations. It's maybe the worst.
It's aside from, I think Cleveland and Miami, where you're still dealing with an albatross contract of a guy who's not going to help you at quarterback.
Yeah. Where you'd rather not have the guy you have. Right. Like they never existed.
If Deshaun Watson didn't exist on the Browns roster, or Tua didn't exist on the Dolphins roster,
you'd be better.
You'd be much better off. But that, to me, just Cam Ward or Fernando Mendoza is enough to bump those ahead of at least
a good start.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is at least I got a good start.
At least I can live or die with a 23, 24-year-old quarterback that I think has some juice.
And no expectations. Don't expect me to win the division this year. I probably have 2 or 3 years, if ownership is logical, that I can build around.
And that's
Mendoza
one of those questions
Ward.
You should be asking too when you're sitting down for an interview. Is
how
long am I getting here till I'm expected to win a division, win a playoff game, contend for a Super Bowl?
Like as awful as the Jets were this year, he was on a hot seat. I mean, they could have been one and done. And if he has a similar year, he's definitely going to be gone next year. No doubt,
100%,
no doubt.
Someone like Dan Quinn. I mean, if they have a similar year, he's out. And they were just in the NFC Championship game 12 months ago.
But you got to look at like Arizona, Cleveland as, I don't have as many cards in my hand as the other teams in terms of, I've mentioned this on the air a lot. Bill Walsh had a saying when he get in his close quarters with his real the coaching staff or the owner and GM and the people really in charge of the Niners. He's like, guys, every year there's only 6 teams we have to worry about, or maybe 8. It's not 32, and we're one of them. Now, every year it's not always the other 6, but there's a lot of teams that aren't capable of winning this thing. We are one of the ones that is. but there's really only 6 or 7 teams that are. Now, times may have changed a little.
Maybe it's closer to 10 now.
Yeah, because the league wants first to.
Absolutely.
I mean, back in the day, the Steelers would dominate the 70s, the Niners would dominate the 80s. You know, the Washington, some of these teams, Giants.
And
I mean,
there was
they weren't
something to
going
be said
away.
for that at the time.
I mean, no one came.
Like, dynasties are good for sports.
They are.
But so is parity and keeping many more organizations
Especially if you're one
and
of the
fan
dynasties.
bases. And,
right.
Exactly right.
Like, I love the Super Steelers and, like, the awesome Swan, Stallworth, Webby, Lambert draft. Well, they didn't all become free agents at the same time. Exactly, are we putting the franchise tag on Webby or Lambert? Because the other one's going to go to is going to Seattle.
Atlanta.
Right.
And make
Exactly. Right.
You're
Right.
Let's kind of piggyback off of this. What are the pros to the Steelers' job right now? What do you look at and you go, ooh, I like that? And what do you look at and you go, that would give me some concern if I were to take the head coaching job?
Yeah.
Let's do that to close down the second hour. I'm actually intrigued to see what you have to say about this because I think there's fair points to be made on both sides.
They are, right.
And,
as with all the jobs, right.
Absolutely. And we'll start to do that on the other side to close down this first hour. Wes Uhler, Matt Williamson. It is The Drive on Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network. There are pros and cons to every job in sports.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're the manager of the LA Dodgers. There's still some cons. If you're the
probably all walks of life. I just don't know any other walks of life.
I just don't know any other walks of life. If you're the head coach of Ohio State football or Duke basketball, there's probably still some cons that come with that. So, Matt,
I urge everyone to realize at all times, and I didn't know this when I was your age. I didn't even understand this as well as I should. All 32 of these organizations are independent businesses that run totally different, and you just realize that,
They are all their own Apple and IBM and Amazon.
Right. Yeah, they all compete against each other, but they do it differently.
Pepsi and Coke and
they have different
Chick-fil-A
resources.
and McDonald's.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just different structure.
So you want to go the pros or you want to go the cons first? Do we each want to take a side here and battle it back and forth?
Whatever you want. I don't care.
Let's start through it. Let's start with pros.
Okay.
Let's start with the pros here because this might even take us 2 segments to get through all of it.
Yeah.
I think there's a ton of pros, and I think you start with organizational stability, ownership, history, footprint.
Yes.
All that
all matters.
Stuff means a ton.
Even fan base. And you wouldn't think that helps me win games, but it's just better to go to work.
Everybody in the football world knows that Steelers logo. Everybody in the football world knows that yellow, that gold, terrible towel.
I mean, that year I was with the Browns, there were some miserable days pulling in that parking lot when we knew we were all getting fired. It's dismal, and we were on our interim head coach getting our heads beat in every week. Yeah. And I would often think, like, man, what's it like if I would do this for the Steelers, my hometown team? Because I didn't, but I was in that I pulled in the parking lot every day and saw those guys, and like that had a lot different feel than it did in my Browns years.
Sure.
Right.
And you have to look no further than 19 years of Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
15 years of Bill Cowher, and what was it, like 22 years, I think, something like that, of Chuck Noll, I want to say.
Sure.
Anyone who is in this coaching world knows how fleeting your time is. You jump from. Look at any of these guys' resumes. We just talked about a few of them. They're
all over the country.
They're at Pitt, then they're at Boston College, then they're at Tampa Bay, then they're at Tennessee, then they're in Green Bay. I mean, every couple of years.
Remember that 1 year you were a head coach in the NFL? Like, that was ancient history.
And
right.
as you've
the word I was going to use is patience too. Like all that stuff you said about organization, ownership, stability, but they're patient. They're probably, if things go really bad next year, and I'm a new head coach, and I'm not really all that good at my job, I probably get a second year at least.
You probably get a third or a fourth year.
Right, where other teams might not.
Yeah.
If
you're Aaron Glenn with the Jets, you're already thinking, I better put up this year, or this might be it.
And I'm sure this happened with all 3 of the Steelers head coaches, that you had some money in the bank. I had been the head coach 4, 5, 6 years, pretty stable. Ownership trusts me. They think I'm a good coach. I'm happy to be here. And then year 7, no one's happy with how it went. I mean, you still may end up with a winning record, but you may have looked at it like, that should have been a Super Bowl team, and
yeah,
and we couldn't have we didn't get there, or whatever.
Maybe where Sean McDermott's at right now.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Man, you've been the best coach that we've had.
Exactly where Harbaugh was
in 30 years.
Right. Super Bowl expectations.
But you can't get us to the Super Bowl. You can't get us over the hump.
Where the ownership's like, well, we still trust you. We think you'll get us there. This was a down year. One out of your first 7 was bad or whatever.
Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, right.
It's like every year he's winning 10 games or losing 10 games. It's always up and down. I think that stability is real. I think that patience is real. Just the legacy to you. You hear this every time the Steelers sign a free agent from another team.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first. I still remember Deshaun Elliott, his introductory press conference. Hey, you played for the Ravens. You played for the Dolphins. Why'd you sign with the Steelers? What made this place attractive? And he pointed to the Steelers logo on the backdrop behind him. He was like, you know what this thing means?
Yeah.
And when you're in it, when you're a Steeler fan and every day you're living and dying with your team's results and the day-to-day decisions and the day-to-day performances, it sometimes can be hard to see that forest through the trees.
Heck yeah.
If you're a Yankees fan or a Celtics fan, like sometimes you can, when you're in it every day and it's all you've ever known, you can forget what that logo means to everybody else outside of your bubble.
Oh, exactly.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that carries a lot of weight.
Yeah.
That Green Bay G.
You can take your wife for granted. That type of thing.
Exactly
I really got it well, and I didn't realize it because I'm here every day. That type of thing. Right.
Exactly right. And I think all of that stuff encompassing is a huge pro for the Steelers.
Huge pro for the Steelers. Another one, they do have good resources. They have a lot of draft picks. They got cap room. And I'm not saying this is a con or not. Funny I said con because Omar Khan's in place. And I would like to know, hey, coaches in the past, they built up a lot more cachet than I do. They were coach here for 19 years. We're very involved with roster building. Is that still a pro, or is that going to be not my job?
Mm-hmm.
So that's down the line. That's not a pro or a con,
depending on how the coach feels about it.
Right. I like some of the resources you guys have. We need an extra receiver. How involved will I be in picking that receiver? It would just be a question.
It's a great one, and it's something that Art Rooney II talked about. Was that yesterday
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday, when he did his press conference, was Chuck Noll was a part of that process. Bill Cowher was a part of that process. Mike Tomlin was a part of that process.
Mm-hmm.
I believe our next head coach will be a part of that. Not an exact quote, but that's...
they're all part of the process. Never forget Mr. Rooney's a lawyer.
Exactly.
Like Dale would always bring that up. He chooses his words extremely well. They're all going to be part of the process. The tight ends coach is part of the process.
Yes.
But there's different pieces, different portions of that. I also think it's a strong roster. It's a good. It's a better roster than the Browns, the Cardinals. Right. The Titans.
Now, when we do the other side of this equation, maybe we'll talk about maybe the age and the salary cap of some of those of those guys.
Yeah.
But I still think it's a division-winning roster.
Yes.
Albeit one that's going to, in all likelihood, have a different quarterback and look different and all those things. But
I like the good young O-line. That's a hard thing to build.
It absolutely is.
Definitely a pro.
I think the last couple draft classes are a pro. I think you look at the offense and you look at that offensive line, and you look at the defense. You look at guys like Derek Harmon, Joey Porter Jr., Nick Herbig, who are all still in their early 20s, mid 20s. Those guys, even if you as a head coach, I think you want the pieces. You want to look at the roster and say, okay, 2, 3, 4 years from now, when I've built this thing into a contender. Who's still going to be with me?
Yeah.
So if you're looking at that now,
I think that's the way you have to look at all these shows.
If you're looking at that now, you're probably saying Cam Hayward's probably not going to be with me in 3 years when I have. That's just the reality of the situation.
Right.
And so we'll talk about the other side of that when we return. But I think there are plenty of the guys on the right side of that, the Darnell Washingtons. Like in 2-3 years when I have this thing humming, these guys are going to be a big part of that.
Yeah.
Steelers also have the most wins since the merger. They also have 6 Lombardi trophies. Haven't had a losing season, famously, in 22 years.
I think it's a pro to have such high standards.
I think so.
But I'm sure some people would look at it like, man, I could be bad at this for a couple of years and no one's going to care. Like, you can't be bad at it here for a couple years and no one's going to care.
You
might get one down year.
Maybe 1.5 years.
Where you happen to get your next Roethlisberger and everybody remembers it. But if you're losing the division or you're losing the Browns over and over and over, that's not going to be forgiven.
People are going to be screaming about you on the local sports talk stations 24/7. Hour in the books, another hour to go. Let's look at the other side of this conversation. What would concern you about the Steelers if you were a coaching candidate interviewing for the head job? And we'll also catch up with our buddy Arthur Moats, his thoughts and his experience 4 years in that locker room with Mike Tomlin. All that and more as we roll into hour number 2. Uhler, Williamson, it's The Drive on Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network. Good evening, Steeler Nation. How we doing? Well, that's good. Us too. Hour number 2 here on a fun Thursday show. We have got to continue our pros and cons conversation about the Steelers' vacant head coaching job. We're going to talk to our buddy Arthur Moats in about 15 minutes. First, though, Matt, doesn't sound good for Nico Collins.
I know he didn't try to do anything on Wednesday.
Still in concussion protocol as of Thursday today.
I think that was his second this year, too.
Long shot that he plays Sunday versus the Patriots. That's a big loss for Houston heading into Foxborough this weekend.
No, it is. I mean, Porter shut him down well. He didn't influence that game very much. They still won, but also his second injury of the game looked pretty nasty, and by all accounts, he kind of didn't know where he was at.
Correct.
Yeah,
and that's always scary stuff.
Very.
And as Max Starks would say, we wish him a full recovery. You don't need a speedy recovery with that kind of stuff. You need a full recovery.
Yeah. They could still possibly win. Yeah.
Absolutely. If they can do what they did defensively, if they can repeat that performance, they've got a chance. I think maybe even if you and I were out there running routes at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Matt, before we get to Arthur Moats and talk with him about some Mike Tomlin memories and thoughts, and a guy who played for Coach T for 4 years, I wanted to spin the block to the other side of this conversation. If you missed it at the end of the first hour, we talked about the pros of the Steelers' vacant head coaching job. If you were one of these candidates and you're interviewing with Art Rooney, with Omar Khan, with that entire operation, that brain trust there, what would you look at as the Steelers really have this going for them? And what would you look at as this is a little concerning to me. This might be difficult to overcome. Let's go to the cons side.
I say we pretty much hit the pros pretty hard.
I think we pretty much covered the pros, and I think just like the pros, it was easy. The first thing you put on the board is ownership, stability, history, tradition, patience, that kind of all-encompassing what we know the Steelers ownership group and the stability of the organization that has been there for so long. Last coach was just there for 19 years. Coach before that, 15 years on down the list. Only 3 head coaches since 1969. And I think if you go to the other, the shoe on the other foot, the number one thing on the concerned list, the cons list,
is easy.
Is you are in a little bit of a quarterback no man's land currently.
Yeah. I
Not
mean,
a little bit of it. You are in quarterback no man's land currently.
There aren't many quarterback situations worse of the 32. I mean, the situation is you have Mason Rudolph under contract for 1 more year, and you have Will Howard on the second year of his rookie deal. That's what you have.
That's what you have the 21st overall pick.
Right, and you don't have the first pick in the draft. And I don't see a great path today for finding one in this class.
This is not the Drake May year where there's going to be 5 guys taken in the top 15, and you could trade up and get the 4th or 5th guy if you really like them.
Right. And frankly, you win too many games to be that team usually anyways, which is a good problem to have, of course. So I think that's a huge conversation you have to have is, Mr. Rooney, Omar, what is your guys' plan for the quarterback? Here's some ideas I have. Are we on the same page? We both realize this is the elephant in the room. This is the biggest thing all of us will have to overcome together.
You think, too, it's safe to assume that that's going to be the number one when the candidates are doing the interview thing too, like we talked about in the first hour.
I would assume
that's got to be like question number one from everybody is what are we doing at quarterback here?
Are you interested in doing another year with some veteran stopgap guy and then going all in next draft?
Are you interested in doing
is that ship sailed? You
Anthony Richardson type reclamation guy for a year?
Right.
Mac Jones type for a year.
Everybody's going to have ideas. At least let's be on the same page.
Don't tell me Kyler Murray, or you can go ahead and chuck that person out the window.
And I don't think anyone's going to be like, well, this will be easy. Here's the plan. Boom. We'll end up with Arch Manning a year from now. No doubt. But at least be on the same page of how to approach the problem. Because I think everyone realizes it's a problem, a challenge. It needs to be corrected.
Yes.
And we're not going to go every year with a new quarterback for the next 10 years. But the whole time I'm here as a head coach, that ain't going to fly.
No doubt.
And ownership doesn't want that. Nobody wants that.
You and I discussed this yesterday, but I think the biggest task for the Steelers organization is over the next 18 months. Yeah,
it's a good time frame.
This draft or next draft, finding your next franchise quarterback. Or
and it can't be the next 5 years. It needs to be
at least stepping up to the plate and taking that swing, because nothing's guaranteed.
Oh, you may not get it, but at least take your swing.
But at least stepping up to the plate and taking that swing. Even if you told me there's a scenario where they draft they find, they procure, and they develop the next franchise quarterback, but 4, 5, 6 years from now you end up moving on from the head coach, I would sign up for that. If he gets you and he develops you the next quarterback and ends up not being the right guy to get you over the hump and to get you back into Lombardi territory, but he got you the quarterback. You know, like that's...
If 18 months from now we're like, well, at least Steelers have a quarterback, things are good.
Say the next 2 seasons, Ben Johnson and the Bears take a big step back, and he ends up not being the right guy. But Caleb Williams is a top 7 quarterback in the NFL.
Mission
Ben Johnson was a dynamite hire.
Mission accomplished.
If Liam Cohen ends up being out of Jacksonville in a few years, but Trevor Lawrence ends up sticking there for 15 years and makes a couple Pro Bowls and
mission accomplished.
Ends up being the Trevor Lawrence people thought he could be, mission accomplished.
Exactly. That's how they have to look at it, is how can we get our next Ben?
But I think from the head coach asking the organization in that question is just as much as the organization asking the head coach. They got to be in lockstep together.
They got to be in lockstep. Like, okay, I like that path, and this is how we can get there. Okay. Or we don't want
to go all in this April because we don't think the guy is there. Fine. But what's our path to when we're going for the guy?
We're not just taking one to take one.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a problem.
And
frankly, I think that there was kind of a Pickett situation. They kind of took one to take one.
I think there was a lot going there.
Yeah.
How took one to take one. He's right next door to you.
Mm-hmm.
How often?
He was a terrible quarterback.
How often are you going to get the? He was the consensus. There were some people talking about Malik Willis, but he was the consensus number 1 QB1.
He was
from most
in a
people.
terrible quarterback class.
In a terrible quarterback class, but how often can you get the consensus QB1 at pick 20 if you're the Steelers? Like, it was just a lot of.
Yeah. No, I understood why they did it, but I also have a great understanding why it didn't work out either.
And the more and more I see people evaluate Ty Simpson, comparing him to Kenny Pickett, and I'm like, oh, let's not.
It does have that kind of vibe to it.
That's what our guy Dane Brugler said, and maybe we'll get to that here to wrap up the show later today. But that's I don't even know if I'd call it an elephant in the room. It's because it's not.
If you're not asking me about that, I'm not hiring you.
Exactly.
You're right.
Exactly.
All right. We have to have this conversation.
Exactly right. So I think that's clear number 1 concern.
Oh, yeah.
And by a significant margin. Like, whatever number 2 is closer to number 3 than it is to that.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time coming up with 2 and 3, et cetera.
I've got a pretty easy number 2.
Okay.
You've got a long in the tooth expensive defense.
Yeah, but I'll do more homework in these coming weeks. It's not as hard to get out of those guys as you think. If you wanted to cut Ramsey, Queen, trade Watt, you could become a very young defense real quick.
You can.
You know what I mean? A year from now, you could easily see Porter, Benton, Harmon. If that was your goal, if my goal was to get young but still good on defense, you can get there a lot quicker than people think. That's all I'll tell you for now.
That makes me more confident, and maybe that's something we should explore in the weeks to come. That makes me more confident that you're so confident in that. And I guess you're right. We always do that. Oh, my goodness, the Broncos are in salary cap hell because of Russell Wilson. And then a year or 2 later, they have it fixed.
They're fine, right? Yeah.
So you're right.
There's easier paths away out of those things than ever.
I'm guilty of that, of being a little hyperbolic with those things. But I think you're right. It's easier to get out. But I look at it and I say, okay, that team just won the division and won 10 games. But who were the key parts of that? Who were the biggest reasons why?
I know.
Cam Hayward. He's not going to be here in 2 or 3 years when I'm trying to win. What's TJ going to be? What's Ramsey going to be? Aaron Rodgers is not going to be here in probably even this year, but certainly not in 2 or 3 years when I think I'm ready to win.
Maybe the conversation is more of a different angle of okay, you guys have some young pieces. We'll just stick with the defense. Porter, Harmon, we know the names, Herbig, et cetera. But that doesn't mean they're going to turn into Cam Hayward and TJ Watt. I mean, they're Hall of Famers. You know what I mean? Like, they're good players. They're going to be in the league a long time. They may go to a Pro Bowl or two, but that doesn't mean they're going to be the best. You know what I mean? Like, I'm losing some really key contributors in the coming years here just due to age. I mean, the league is not for long.
And that's you're right. That's anywhere.
That's everywhere.
I mean,
right. Everything changes quick.
But
one thing I'd throw out, I don't think this is one of the hardest divisions in the league anymore. But I don't love Lamar and Burrow are in my division. If we're talking about cons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, they're two of the top 5 quarterbacks walking the planet still, and I got to play them 4 times a year. I mean, that's a con.
That is.
That's a con.
That is. That's
a small one.
That's about all I got, though.
I would at least have the conversation.
And those are significant, but
right. This is going to sound the wrong way because I actually believe kind of the opposite. The Steelers are known to have a very small coaching staff. I don't know what they pay their coaches. I don't care, but they're all well compensated. I don't know how they compare to the rest of the league. I don't. But I would at least have the conversation. How limited are we with hiring my staff? Because that's really important.
What's kind of my salary pool from all my assistants and coordinators?
Are you open to adding an extra offensive line coach than you did last year?
An extra pass game coordinator or run game coordinator.
Or, hey, I'm a young coach. How about a senior assistant that's, been there, done it, 65-year-old former head coach.
Do the Nick Saban thing, right?
Yeah. I'd at least have that conversation. Some of these staffs, I think, are way too huge. And I'm like, what the heck do they do all day? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a big staff guy.
Way too many cooks in the kitchen.
Right, but you have to have that conversation,
Totally.
Yeah.
That's a good, not at the forefront, but absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see it as a con, but it's a conversation. Right.
That's well said.
Yeah.
Last one I've got for you. And you and I have kind of laughed about this off air, but I'd like to get your real thoughts about it. A lot of people like to, when they're having these conversations, Steelers, Ravens, Dolphins, Cardinals, Tennessee Titans. How does the lifestyle equation factor in, or does it at all for these head coaches? If all things are equal and you can go live in Wisconsin and be the Packers guy, or you can go live in Miami or Arizona and be those guys. Does that matter? Does quality of life, does climate, does weather, do all those things matter? Economics. I can go to Florida where there's no state income tax.
Right, or more expensive in San Francisco than Green Bay.
Like John Harbaugh, his housing costs and all that probably just went up, pretty significantly moving to that part of the country. How much do those factors weigh into coaches' decisions?
They should heavily. Probably not as much when you're picking. There's only 32 of them. If it's, I can go to Arizona State, or if I'm not coming up with a great example. University of Wisconsin versus Arizona State, or different areas of the country, or certainly if you and I grew up in Pittsburgh, I would rather coach here than any of the other 31 teams.
Yeah,
because
than in Las Vegas.
And, my grandma's here, and that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of it just depends on your family. Wife and kids, where do they want to live? Or do I have any family? Or
what are the school districts like in these towns?
Right. I mean, I'm sure all these towns you can find a nice neighborhood. You're not hurting for money.
It's an NFL city. It's not Wichita in the middle of nowhere.
And people might not know this, but like when I was at the Browns, Courtney Brown lived like 2 doors away from Butch Davis because the Browns said this is a really good neighborhood. We recommend it. You don't have to live there. Do whatever you want. But they guide you in the right direction.
Absolutely.
They do that with all their draft picks.
Absolutely.
Every team does that. I mean, they help you acclimate, and you can do whatever you want. You say, I'm not interested, but whatever. But that's part of it, right? But I think at that point, when you're at the creme de la creme of the job, you don't look at the area of the country as much as the football stuff,
I always laugh when people say that about coaches. Like, why would he want to live there? Why would he want to do? Well, if you were getting paid what he's getting paid too, I don't think you'd give a rip.
It's a promotion from when he was at UTEP.
Yes,
right? Yeah, right.
And also, if you're John Harbaugh, like I'm sure like this always. I'm trying to think of this happened. This happened when Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma to go to USC. I remember the reaction of a lot of Oklahoma people being like, well, enjoy Southern California and that cost of living and all of that. Like, he's making $12 million a year.
Yeah, right.
For John,
and there's also a reason the cost of living's high because people like that area of the country, and it's a great place to live, right?
For John Harbaugh, I'm sure he's all right if his mortgage doubles. He's making $20 million a year. He'll be just fine.
Right.
And you know this.
A lot of those college coaches, there's even a house, like Paterno lived in a house that the
owned by the university.
By the university, right.
But you were laughing yesterday. I was telling you this. I saw a bunch of Baltimore and Pittsburgh people bickering back and forth about which was the better city to live in.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is Pittsburgh. We all know. But
of course.
I'm like, there's only like 5 places in the country that are worth bragging about living in.
Yeah.
And if you're on Twitter arguing with strangers about where you live, you don't live in one of those places, okay?
Right.
Let's take a break here and get to Arthur Moats. We talked about this earlier in the week. We thought it'd be a lot of fun to have him on, just talk about the 4 years that he spent with Mike Tomlin. And so we will do that when we return. Moatsy will join us on the other side here on The Drive. Wes Uhler, Matt Williamson. It's Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network. Back on The Drive here, and to the phone lines we go to welcome a very special guest. If you've been a regular listener of the Steelers Audio Network, if you are a Steelers junkie, anything in between, you obviously know the name Arthur Moats. Used to be a host here on this network. Now he's doing stuff in the stadium and KDKA on TV, getting that handsome face out there, still living the dream one day at a time. And of course, he played for Mike Tomlin for 4 years as a member of your Pittsburgh Steelers. The great Arthur Moats. Moats, what's up, dude? Thanks for taking the time to join us here.
Man, first off, it's always good to hear that voice in my ear, man. How the heck are y'all doing, man?
Dude, go. You dumped them on me. I'm stuck with them every day now.
Hey, look, he's going to keep you on your toes, man, but you're in good hands regardless.
Oh, without a doubt. The three of us had some fun in the past doing some combine shows and OTAs and training camp and all that stuff. Good to have you here with us, Moatsy. Thank you again for taking the time. And obviously, we want to talk to you about Mike Tomlin and 19 years in the books. I was still in high school when Mike Tomlin was hired by the Steelers. I think you might have been either like a senior or you were in college at that time. So let's just kind of, 30,000-foot initial reaction when Mike Tomlin announced that he was stepping down. 19 years, an incredible tenure, a Super Bowl, a bunch of division titles, no losing seasons. What was just kind of your initial reaction when the news broke on Tuesday?
Yeah, man, for me, a little surprised, more so just at the timing of it. I don't think that it was something to me that was completely off the table, but it was just more so surprising. But when I finally got a chance to, settle with it, it was more so just proud of him, man. I mean, I love Coach Tomlin. This is like I said, my guy, man. Coached me for 4 years. I've known this guy for even longer than that, even going back to my collegiate time, just with us both being from the same hometown, right, in the 757 back in Virginia. So for me, man, to see, you come in as a guy that had never been a head coach in the NFL level, and in your first opportunity, you go 19 seasons and everything you just wrote off, right? 193 wins, never had a losing season, 8 division titles, a Super Bowl championship. I'm like, man, if any coach that we hire going forward gives us that, man, we'll be saying the exact same things about that guy. So when I think of that, that's the reason why I'm just so proud of everything that he was able to accomplish, and more importantly, being able to walk away on top of the division. It's like, man, we know everybody wants to win a Super Bowl, but even if you fell short of that, the fact that you still walking away with 10 wins, AFC North champ again, it's like, man, go out on top, go out the way that you want to go out, even if it's not necessarily storybook. To me, this is the next best thing.
So many people, and I think it's true, but I just wanted to hear it from a former player, rave about Coach Tomlin's communication skills, the way he talks to every player, coach, etc., understands what makes you guys tick. Is that pretty true?
Oh, 1,000%. And that's the reason also why he's able to connect with us as much as he does, because he personalizes that message. It's very easy to see somebody that's not authentic, and when their level of motivation, it starts to be shown as, man, this is more cookie cutter versus authentic, customized. And just from my personal experiences, I could think back to how he would address me and how he would motivate me in certain elements. But then a guy I'm sitting right next to, he was going to motivate them in a completely different way, and so forth and so. And when you see a guy that's able to do that, but with true authenticity, and he's not just bringing up general stuff, he's speaking directly to you. That's why all of the guys that have played for him speak as highly as we do of him. And we all have that personal and emotional tie to him as well, because when we say he's a leader of men, that's truly what it is. I mean, we're talking about being in a room full of alpha males that all have kicked a ton of butts in terms of their physical play, and then financially, it's like, man, we're also guys that have, a good amount of financial backing as well. So to come in and be able to communicate, to hold these guys accountable, to be able to discipline, to be able to direct them and keep them on the right path, that also is extremely challenging to do. And to think about some of the personalities that have come through that locker room, some of my teammates, some of the guys have to be as well. It's like that just kind of gets swept under the rug because of how awesome he was from a coaching standpoint in terms of the wins and losses.
Moats, you started your career with the Buffalo Bills, the team that drafted you, 4 years there, and then signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. How big was Mike Tomlin in that equation, in that decision for you to decide to sign in the black and gold whenever you had that opportunity after your rookie contract expired in Buffalo?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely transparent, he was the reason, the only reason, because
Really?
there was more money on the table in Cleveland and in New England with offers. But it literally was, man, a 757 number call on my phone, and I hear old Coach Tomlin say, "Hey, Party Town, P-Town, man, what's up, baby? I know you used to rush that passer back in college, but hey, if you come on down here, take this minimum deal, man, I'll make it right for you on the back end." And I just remember thinking to myself, I love Coach Tomlin from afar. I've never, got a chance to have these type of conversations with him, but the fact that he remembers me from this and that he knows my hometown, and this dude is Coach Tomlin, yes, I will take the vet minimum. I'm going to tell my pregnant wife at the time, too. Hey, babe, we're going to take less money, and it's not guaranteed. but Coach Tomlin, all right? Coach Tomlin, he's from the hometown. He said if I do what I'm supposed to do, he'll take care of me on the back end. We're going to go and do this thing. And I just remember the look on her face, and it's like, are you serious? But her trust in me, and ultimately my trust in Coach Tomlin, was the biggest reason why we made that decision to come here. And he held true to his word. I did what I was supposed to do on the field, but he also did what he was supposed to do in terms of creating opportunities and, more importantly, making sure financially, when those negotiations came back around the next time, he was also going to make sure that I was, compensated at a level that made me really, really happy. So when I think of that, that is one of my, favorite decisions that I have ever made in my life because of everything that led into it, and then just having to trust a person that I hold to such high regard, even before I had ever met him in person. It was just the reverence of him because of who he is and who he was even back then. So when I think of that, it's just like, man, excellent decision right there. Now, it was some other decisions that weren't so good, but that one right there, yes, love that decision.
That's so cool. Arthur, how much did it stick with you from Coach Tomlin's just football knowledge, not his leadership or the way he communicated? I think everybody knows that stuff, but just his fundamentals, his scheming, just X's and O's and how to attack quarterbacks and just football stuff.
Yeah, man, so much of that has stuck with me. And it's funny because I always prided myself on being a high football intellect guy. I felt like, man, I know so many schemes because of my experiences, having to plan a 4-3, having to plan a 3-4, having different coordinators, playing in different positions in those, and just understanding the big puzzle. But then when I come to Pittsburgh and I get around Dick LeBeau, I get around Coach Tomlin, and just listening to how Coach Tomlin would talk, and it grew more than just the simple X and O of what this call is, and it became more of what we are trying to take away and why we're trying to take it away. Situational football, man, if it's short yardage situation, if you're in the red zone area, you don't want to get beat to the flat. Why? Because the field condenses, so you're not as concerned with the vertical threat, but now the field laterally becomes the hot spots. So just things like that, understanding pressure packages, understanding the importance of being able to create pressure with 4 or having the blitz or even simulated pressures, and how all of them work together, pros and cons to each. That was the thing that I really just appreciated being around Coach Tomlin and hearing that type of just even doctor level, X's and O's or just higher level scheme thoughts that for me personally, I wasn't even introduced to all the way, even though I thought I was. And that's the beauty of life, right? You think that you know all of it, and then you meet somebody, you're like, oh, wow. Got more football than I even know right now. And that's Coach Tomlin. And that's why, it was funny that he gets such a label of being a player's coach, because to me, I'm like, this is one of the sharpest football minds that I have ever been around.
That's great insight, certainly. And so to kind of bigger picture now for you, because by the way, Steelers former linebacker legend Arthur Moats with us here for a couple more minutes on the drive.
Just a friend of Wes and Matt, just a friend of the guys,
friend of the show, friend of the organization, friend in real life. To kind of, we've obviously spent some time this week, as you can imagine, talking about if you were someone interviewing for the Steelers job, what would be the pros? What would you really like? What would be the cons? What would be your concerns? One of the things that we obviously listed right away on the pros list was just the organizational stability that the Steelers have from an ownership standpoint, from a patient standpoint, obviously paired with the history and the tradition. But we all know Mike Tomlin was there for 19 years. Bill Cowher was there for 15 years. A very stable, non-knee-jerk, to use a big word there, organization.
Hey now.
And obviously you spent time with Buffalo, which was a much different Buffalo Bills organization at that time than it is now, certainly.
Very true.
And you kind of ended your career with the Arizona Cardinals. Would you agree with would you agree with that? Like when Matt and I say for an outside candidate, the stability of the Steelers organization is going to be very attractive. You came here from the outside. The Steelers were not the team that drafted you at first. You had been with two other organizations that were not, as stable as the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. Are we right in that? And what did you kind of experience in that regard in your time in Pittsburgh versus the other places you were at?
No, that's definitely the thing that stands out the most when you just think about the Steelers, regardless of coach right now. As long as there's been a Rooney in ownership, in control, patience, stability, calm. And as a player, that was something that was extremely exciting to me because, as you said, man, this league, there is so much turnover when you look around. Every 2 to 3 years, there are new coaches, new players, everything, organizations doing mass overhauls. So that was one of the other things that was exciting about coming to Pittsburgh, was the fact that Coach Tomlin had been here for as long as he had been, that there was the same ownership here that had been, because in Buffalo, I had experienced, 2 head coaches in 4 years, 2 general managers in 4 years, and 2.5 head coaches in 4 years, 3 defensive coordinators in 4 years. So you can see it wasn't a lot of stability. And then within 2 years of me leaving the organization, they switched ownership. So I was really drawn to the stability. And I do feel like for coaches, that is going to be a big draw because we know this is one of the toughest leagues to win in. And to do it on a year in, year out basis is challenges with that. We know quarterback matters. And we know that even though this roster has a lot of talent, there's still going to be questions at some very significant positions. And for certain coaches, they want to know that, will I have time to figure that out? I don't want to sign up if I'm only going to get 2 years and then you decide to go in a different direction and cut my legs out before I can really develop anything. So that will be very, very exciting for whoever the organization decides on.
So last thing I got for you, Moats, you talked about how he treats all the players different. He takes it personal. He knows all the guys and their personalities, what makes them tick. But I would bet the same is true for the Steelers' opponents. He's been in the league so long. Man, I know that coordinator. If we can do this to him, he'll crack. Or that quarterback, if we hit him twice early in the game, I would think that reflects to game planning against your opponents too.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And that is the fun part as well for, me when I came over, I was already 4 years in the NFL. So I was already starting to build up some confidence and just understanding of players, coaches, coordinators. And to come into Pittsburgh and to just hear how Coach Tomlin can tell you about this guy and the history of this guy and this player and the history of this player. And, okay, they're from this type of family, so that is why this, or even his emphasis on wanting players that are either coming from families that had other people be professional or a father that played professionally. Why? Because of just their understanding of the game, their understanding of how to take care of their body or the business stuff. And that's the little nuance that when you listen to him, it's like, how did you get there? But when you think of how long he's been in this process, that's a big part of it. One of the things that also stood out, and Matt, you can attest to this, we all go to the combine. And one of the things that we've heard from Coach Tomlin is he'll interview players that he knows they won't draft right there, but he's doing it because he wants to build a profile on them. Yeah. He'll go to their pro days because he wants to see them move in person, even though he knows I'm not drafting this guy this year. I probably won't get a chance to touch him for the next 4 years, but I'm going to see him, and I want to just see what that looks like, just get an idea for it.
And he's going to play against them, undoubtedly, too.
Absolutely.
Right.
So those are some of the things that he does to just stay ahead of it, and that's also part of when we hear him, you know, when I talk about just how he stays innovative and just different ways to stay current. Even though you've been at one spot for so long, how do you stay up to date? Those are some of the things. So absolutely, man. And like I said, as a player, as a competitor, all of that is exciting. All of that is intriguing because you want a coach that wants it just as bad or more than you do. You want a coach that's going to know more than you do. You don't want to ever go to your coach and say, hey, coach, what about this? And he's like, oh, hold on, I don't know that. That's a bad feeling. With Coach Tomlin, I can tell you first that I've never heard him say, hey, I don't know, let me come back to you on that. Like, he always has the answer. And that's a very, very secure feeling from a player's perspective.
Great stuff with the nine-year NFL vet, Arthur Moats. Dude, thank you for taking the time. Great hearing your voice and catching up with you. We'll do this again soon, and tell the family we said hello.
Man, you already know. Love both of y'all, man. Hope both of y'all keep killing it, man. And appreciate the opportunity as well, man.
Oh, thank you for the time, Moatsy. Thank you very much. There he goes. Steelers legend, Steelers alumni, former linebacker, 9 years in the league, former host on this station.
Yeah.
Now you can see
him.
That was
a blast.
KDKA TV. He's at the stadium. He's doing a million different things, as always, the great Arthur Moats. That was a lot of fun. We have got to get to a break, though. We'll come back and close this thing down with some final thoughts, news of the day, maybe a little draft conversation, too, on the other side when we return. Wes Uhler, Matt Williamson. It is The Drive on Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network. Wrapping up the show here on a Thursday. It's been a hectic, kind of all over the place week, Matt.
Oh, yeah.
But tomorrow we'll get back to some more stable. We'll talk and preview all the divisional round games, obviously. And at some point here, we're going to start doing pretty consistently draft conversation.
Yeah, I got to dig in heavy.
Just about every day. But a guy that we reference a lot, I think this is kind of a fun way to close the show down today. A guy that you and I reference a lot, Moats just referenced the Combine there a few minutes ago. If you've listened to our Combine coverage, if you're someone who, you know, you're not just a Steelers fan who watches the game, you're kind of in tune 365 days a year, you know the name Dane Brugler. He's one of the best.
Yeah, he's great.
He's you know, I think the next kind of McShay and Mel Kiper, the next wave, the next generation of that. And in the aftermath of Dante Moore's decision to go back to Oregon, something that we briefly mentioned yesterday, but he was, I think, pretty much the consensus QB2 in this upcoming draft. Probably the only guy other than Mendoza, and a ton can change between now and April and will change between now and April.
Even tomorrow, I want to have a ripple effect conversation about Moore and the quarterbacks. It's going to be scarce this year.
Yeah, it's going to be scarce. I think there's a lot of guys that you would like to take in that Tyler Shuck range.
Yeah.
But none really in the top 15, top 20 range, other than obviously Fernando Mendoza. The only other guy that would have factored into that would have definitely been a top 5, certainly top 10 pick, Dante Moore, is returning to Oregon for the 2026 season. So here's what Dane Brugler kind of had in the aftermath of that, and why I want to go here, because of how it affects the Steelers, too. We'll get there. Number one, still Fernando Mendoza.
Get used to it, folks. Yeah.
Get used to it. That's going to be the first name at the podium. Maybe at some point, too, we should have a conversation of, like, if you're the Raiders, is it just a foregone conclusion this is our guy, or are you picking up the phone and listening to offers, which there might be some really intriguing ones?
I'd have to see the head coaches first, but I would imagine the answer is we're sticking and picking.
I think so. and the Jets at number 2 might be the ones most affected by this.
And I think it's a big reason he went back. I don't think he wanted to be a Jet.
I think it's a big reason why he went back. If you're the Jets, it was like we could have taken Dante Moore, or we could have fielded a million calls for this too, and that's not going to be the case now. With that, the number 2 overall pick in the draft might be as wide open as it's been in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Dane has Arvell Reese, the outstanding, do-it-all, versatile linebacker edge rusher from Ohio State. That wouldn't surprise me.
No, that wouldn't surprise me either. I mean, I think there's a case to be made that he's the best player in the draft.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Number 3, a guy that I've been telling you about since September, since he was absolutely planting people at Mountaineer Field, Spencer Fanu, the offensive tackle from Utah, going 3 overall to the Cardinals. Cardinals got to start building up that nest.
They do.
They're going to have a new head coach, new era. I think that would be a very good pickup for him. I think he's outstanding.
They get a good left tackle. He'd be more the Mauler right tackle type.
And that's what he played left tackle. He played left tackle for a period at Utah, but has also played the right side as well. Okay. So he's got the versatility experience of playing both in college. Number 4, Tennessee Titans, Carnell Tate, wide receiver from Ohio State. It's like yearly one of these Ohio State wide receivers going in the first round.
This is going to be Steeler relevant, but it's a pretty good wide receiver class where it didn't look like it would be going into the season.
I think there's 3 or 4 legit first-round guys.
Yeah, and I was even going to maybe even bump that up.
Maybe even 5, 4,
and that
5,
certainly
6.
could be a factor at 21 for sure. Steelers picked 21, by the way, first.
Yes,
I don't
they
think
do.
we've told anyone that yet. But I don't know that any of them are great. You know what I mean? Like, this always happens in the draft. I'm going to be harder on this group now, but the more research, I'll like them more and more and more.
Totally.
I just don't know if Tate or these next couple receivers, most years would be the first receiver off the board. You know, like a Neighbors or a Harrison or a Chase, or you know what I mean?
Maybe a little bit like we were talking about with Ted McMillan last year.
Yeah,
like, this guy's really good.
Really good, right.
But for wide receiver 1, he doesn't wow you as much.
And he turned out to be great.
Yeah.
Going
to win Offensive Rookie of the Year here in a couple weeks. 5, another one of those wide receivers, the one that I really like, Jordan Tyson from Arizona State, goes to the Giants. So back-to-back wide receivers there. Browns back on the clock at 6. They take Francis Mayaga, the other outstanding tackle. He's from Miami. You can watch him Monday night in the national championship game. I think for the Browns, that would make a lot of sense. If the quarterback's not right there for you, build up that nest.
Oh, they almost have to go a line.
Almost have to.
Yeah.
7, another guy that I saw at Mountaineer Field this year that just did absolutely illegal things to my Mountaineers. The Washington Commanders take David Bailey, edge rusher from Texas Tech.
Yeah, he seems like he's definitely going to be a top 10 pick.
I think him or Reuben Bain, the edge rusher from Miami, will be the first I say true edge rushers, because Arvell Reese is kind of all over the place. Yeah. But I think David Bailey will definitely be a top 10 pick. He had an unbelievable year. He's got the combination of twitch and power, which is just what you're looking for at edge rusher. The Saints at 8 take Jeremiah Love, outstanding running back from Notre Dame. He might be the best player in this class.
He might. He's going to be a weird conversation of, you know,
how do you value the position?
You're right. Are the Raiders happy they took Genti? Probably not. Right, and it's not even his fault.
No.
But, like, the Chiefs are coming up here soon. What if they took Love? That's a lot different than the Saints taking Love.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Although I will say, you put him in that backfield for Tyler Shuck with what Kellen Moore could do with him.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be fun. But again, at pick 8, you can have, the second offensive lineman. You can have the second edge rusher. You can have
a lot of defensive needs.
A lot of defensive needs. Now, at number 9 for Kansas City, this might be the best player in the draft. But how do you value the position? How do you value it for Kansas City? Dane has Caleb Downs, the Ohio State safety, going to the Chiefs.
It wouldn't shock me if the Chiefs take a non-premium position. Downs, Love, or Sadiq, the tight end, could be Kelsey's replacement.
From Oregon. Yes, all those would make sense. Pardon me. Reuben Bain, who I mentioned a minute ago, edge rusher from Miami. You can watch him Monday night as well. He goes 10th to the Bengals, so the Bengals would go back-to-back edge rushers after Shamir Stewart last year in the first round. I think that was 12th overall.
Miles Murphy the year before, back-to-back. Right.
True. And
but they need him.
Hendrickson is likely going to be gone.
And I think Henderson will be gone. Yeah.
And they need him. Miami Dolphins take Jermod McCoy, the corner out of Tennessee. He becomes the first true cornerback off the board. where we kind of Caleb Downs, more of the safety slot, hybrid type.
Sounds like there's some fighting to see who CB1 will be. But it's not a bad corner group, from what I understand.
It's not. And we'll be getting this is about the area that you'll have a run on some of those guys.
Yeah.
The Cowboys take the other Ohio State linebacker who just declared this week, actually, Sonny Styles.
Okay.
He's, again, how much do you value a off-ball linebacker?
Mm-hmm.
But he's a freak. I mean,
there's a lot of good off-the-ball linebackers that are potential first-rounders.
He's built like an edge rusher, but moves like an off-ball linebacker. Like, he's a freak.
Oh, there's a lot to like.
13, the Rams take Mansour Delaney, a corner from LSU. He's another one of those guys who could be the first corner off the board.
Mm-hmm. Corner's an area of weakness.
It is. 14, the Baltimore Ravens go interior offensive line. Vega Lone, the guard from Penn State. I think
That's exactly what they need on offense.
Again, and we could argue is 14 too high to take a guard, but I think, is the consensus number one interior offensive lineman. And at pick 14, that's probably the right range.
I bet they take a 300-pounder. It's either going to be a big defense tackle or it's going to be a big interior offensive lineman.
Some beef.
Yeah.
Some beef in Baltimore. The Bucs at 15 take Kendrick Falk, edge rusher from Auburn. He's another one that I think will really get on people's radars once we get into this combine process, because he's going to test. He's one of those guys that at the Underwear Olympics in Indianapolis.
That's going to say he's going to steal the show there.
6'6", 275.
Yeah.
And
he's like built in a lab type guy.
He's got those lanky arms. He looks like the guy that you create on Madden to be your edge rusher. Number 16, the Jets. That's the Sauce Gardner pick from the Colts. Another wide receiver, one that I've seen mocked to the Steelers a lot. Mekhi Lemon goes 16th to the Jets, Jets.
I don't know if they'd go offense. Their defense needs everything. I mean, they have multiple picks. Maybe he's just best guy on the board.
I guess if you take Arvell Reese at pick 2, defense, you go back to who's the best offensive guy for us here. But
I think Lemon's someone we'll talk a lot about with the Steelers.
I'm very intrigued by him at 21. 17, the Detroit Lions take the other world-beating Utah tackle. It's no wonder they ran for 700 yards on everybody, Matt. Utah. They're going to both their tackles are going to be drafted in the first round.
Right.
Caleb Lomu, which is the other one. I think Fanu is better, but Lomu, man, he's the guy who's been more the true left tackle throughout his career. I think he'd pair very nicely with, like, just bigger picture, I'd rather have Spencer Fanu. Than Lomu out of Utah. But if I'm the Lions and I already know Penei Sewell's that right side anchor, I think I'd be fine with Caleb Lomu.
Decker's getting up in age. Maybe one of them, or maybe he's a guard for a year or something like that too.
Seems like every year now, Matt, we're having one of these freak tight ends.
Speaking of which, I think Arthur Smith is in Detroit.
He is
interviewing today.
I'm glad
we didn't mention that today.
That was in my kind of at the top of the show news things that I meant to mention, but we started talking about Harbaugh and some of that other stuff. Arthur Smith, we know, interviewing with the Titans, with the Cardinals, with the Lions today.
Lions is not as a head job, obviously.
Yes, offensive coordinator. Yeah. Vikings at 18 take Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end, the number one, the TE1 in this class, big freaky athlete out of Oregon. 19, Carolina Panthers, Peter Woods, the defensive tackle from Clemson, who a lot of people had mocked as a top 5 pick coming into this year.
Kind of an underwhelming year, but still has all the traits. And
you pair him next to Derek Brown. I mean, they could be a nasty interior tandem there in Carolina for a while. Packers pick 20. That's the Micah Parsons pick from Green Bay. They take Avion Terrell, corner out of Clemson. So back-to-back Clemson guys here in the first round. Younger brother of A.J. Terrell, of course, the Falcons corner. And then 21, Pittsburgh Steelers. And this would be an interesting spot to be because the wide receivers that I would really like are off the board. You know, Lemon just went a few spots earlier. But Dane has the Steelers taking Ty Simpson, quarterback, Alabama, as his QB2 now that Dante Moore, that's kind of the ripple effect there. And he says this is going to be a popular pairing in mock drafts over the next 4 months. The Steelers presumably will be looking for a starting quarterback, and Simpson is expected to land somewhere in the back half of the first round. Would this be a Kenny Pickett route all over again? Maybe, but Simpson processes his surroundings well, especially considering his limited starting experience.
I get it. And again, this is anything but a final answer.
Oh, we're still months away.
So I don't know enough about the player. But if you told me today, Genie comes out of the bottle and says, I'll trade you Simpson for 21. I
love it when you frame it this way.
I'll take door number 2. I'll go fish. I'm not giving you 21 for him right today.
Fernando Mendoza, obviously.
Yeah.
Dante Moore, yes.
Right. And I might eat those words. I might a month from now, like, boy, there's no way they're going to give me 21.
By the time you and I get back from the combine and we're back here in the studio in March doing shows, we might say, yeah, I would.
I might even say I'll give you 21 and next year's first. I mean, I might fall in love with them. But as of today, I would not give you 21 for Simpson.
As of today, the only quarterback that is declared for the draft that I would give you 21 for is Fernando Mendoza.
Mm-hmm.
I would have said that for Dante Moore too. But he is returning to Oregon. We'll see how that evolves throughout the coming weeks and months here as we get closer and closer to April. Matt, fun show today. I enjoyed it. We covered a lot of different bases.
Yep, it's good talking to Moats too.
It was. Yeah, big thanks to Moats for joining us, to Nathan for producing, and Mr. TV, Tyler V, on the video side of things, keeping us handsome on YouTube. We will be back tomorrow to kind of wrap up a wild week and preview. Hey, there's still football going on as much as that's been pushed to the back burner.
College stuff we haven't talked about much either, too.
Exactly right. We'll get back into some of the regular programming tomorrow, get you ready for divisional round.
I bet there's still coach news in the next couple of days, too.
I bet you certainly in the next 24 hours we'll have more moving and shaking in that department, too. So for Matt Williamson, I'm Wes Uhler. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow. As always, you know where to find us. It's on your 24/7 home of the black and gold, Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network.